All right, we've got the design and the start of our programming in place. Now we'll make an AJAX call using jQuery's getJSON method. I'm going to put this in the flickr.js file. We need to send the AJAX request when a visitor to this page pushes one of the buttons. So we'll put the AJAX programming inside the click event. Here's the basic structure of jQuery's getJSON method. It takes 3 arguments. First, the URL to the resource. In this case, that's Flickr's public photo feed. Second, the data we want to send along with the URL. This data will affect what information Flickr will return in its response. We'll look at that in just a moment. Finally, the third argument is a callback function, the programming that runs when Flickr sends back its response. Let's start with the URL. I'll define a variable to hold it. This link points to Flickr's public photo feed, but you'll notice that there's something extra at the end of the URL. This is a query string, and it's very important. It tells Flickr that we're making a JSON P request. Adding the JSON callback equals ? To the end of the URL lets you get around this security limitation. Many of the websites that let you access their API using AJAX use this same convention of adding the term JSON callback to the query string. The next argument we supply to the getJSON method is data that we'll give to Flickr each time a button is clicked. Remember, we want pictures of dogs when the first button is clicked, pictures of cats when the second button is clicked, and pictures of moose when the last button is clicked. In other words, we need to send different data each time a button is clicked. Let's look at the HTML again. Each button already has the word we need inside it. Dog, cat, moose. So we just need to capture the word when the button is clicked. jQuery makes this easy. I'll create a variable for this and store the word in it. The $this, as I just mentioned in the last video, refers to the button that the visitor to the page clicks. So when the cat's button is clicked, the click event is triggered for that button. In that case, $this refers to the cat button. jQuery provides a handy method called text that gets all of the text from inside the HTML element. In other words, the variable animal will hold the value cat when the cat button is clicked, dog when the dog button is clicked, and moose when the moose button is clicked. We need to send this word to Flickr to tell its server which pictures we want. Remember that second argument to the getJSON method? That's the data we send along with the URL. jQuery expects this to be in the format of a JavaScript object. Here I've named the variable Flickr options, but that's just my choice. It's a JavaScript variable after all, so you could just name it options or even OPTS, short for options. Inside this object, I'll add the first name-value pair. The property name here is tags, and its value is the variable animal. Remember, that's the button that the person clicked. In other words, the value will change depending on which button is clicked, dog, cat, or moose. But what is this tags property, and where did it come from? Let's look at the page explaining Flickr's public feed. Notice that it lets you send some additional information to control how the feed is made. There's a tags option. This tells Flickr to search for photos that match a particular tag. So by sending that tag cat tells the Flickr server to search for the most recent photos tagged with the word cat. You can also see there's a format option. This tells Flickr which format we want the data in. Remember that normally Flickr sends XML, but we want JSON data, so we need to set the format setting to JSON. Let's add that to the Flickr options object. Great, we have the URL set, the data in place. Now we just need to add a callback function. You can see that I named it display photos in the getJSON method call. So I'll create a new function with that name. When Flickr returns its list of photos to the page, this function, display photos, will run. Notice that it receives one argument. Here it's named data. It represents the JSON data returned by jQuery. jQuery parsed the returned JSON string from the server, so the data is actual JavaScript at this point, and we can access it using JavaScript functions. We'll cover that in the next video, but I want to point out that there are other ways you could write this code. For example, I created two variables and a named function, then passed those into the getJSON function. But you don't have to do it that way. Some programmers like to skip creating separate variables and just pass all the information straight into the getJSON function like this. Here's the URL. Here's the data. And here's the callback. This method does require less typing, but it's not quite as easy to read as the way we did it previously. However, either method will work, so pick the one that you like best and makes the most sense to you. In the next video, we'll actually write the HTML, including links and images to the page.